started. My wife went to rehab. She brought it back. Everybody smokes at rehab about a year ago. So I've quit the drinking though. So I only drink what you spit in my face.
Ladies and gentlemen, you ought to do a
reunion thing and show a clip of that.
Okay, all right, I will. Alex Jones is with us. He's an Austin-based producer, director, writer, and documentary filmmaker, as well as host of the Alex Jones Show, which appears on both syndicated and internet radio. He is also the founder of Infowars, the multimedia enterprise. He has been banned by many prominent social media outlets for a range of alleged violations, although his Twitter account was recently restored. Welcome to the show, Alex Jones.
Wow, Jimmy, I've been a big fan of you for a long time, and you're one of the only men whose spit I've had in my mouth. So I just want to say that I've also had Willie Nelson spit in my mouth.
Oh, okay.
But my mouth was open when you spit at me like a spitting cobra, went right in my mouth. So you and Willie Nelson have both been in my mouth.
No, I stand by.
You put that on your headstone?
I put that on my headstone, but I stand by that you were being funny. Because you were being funny. You said to Jake Uger, "I'm trying to be nice," and that was funny to me. And let's just show it. Here, I'll show it what happened. Here it is.
Oh, no, Jake, relax. Hold on. We're against Saudi Arabia, you dumbass. We talk about that all the time. We talk about that all the time. You don't know shit. What do you think? The lizard people are in charge? No. Is that what you think? Hey, you're pissed. Is that what you think? You're the anti-liberal and you're pissed. Bullshit. We're being nice here. You know what I care about? I care about the American people. Good. You're the one putting it out. Anybody hurt? I'm being nice. I'm not right. Everybody get the fuck off my stage. Get the fuck off my stage.
Okay, so there was the Ice-T incident, and the ironic thing is that I thought this was going to blow up into a huge fist fight, because Jake Uger was out of his mind, and you had baited him correctly and professionally, and you got exactly. I couldn't believe he was handling it that way.
He's a brawler,
and he
like Jake's a brawler.
He likes to say he's a brawler. But it did diffuse almost immediately after that. Like everybody kind of walked away from that. But
if you watch the full clip, I mean, it was one of the most viral things I ever did, and people thought I snuck on your stage like at your offices. No, it was at the RNC 2016 in Cleveland, and it was a huge parking garage that they'd sealed up with big air conditioners in July, and so we were all milling around. I walked by, said hi to them. I've been on the show a few times. They said, yeah, maybe we'll have you on later. And I came back by and they were on break. So I went up there and gave him a Bill Clinton's a rapist t-shirt. And he just completely blew up when he saw Roger Stone walking by and said, Roger, you're not going to crash my show. And so then I thought it was all a joke. And then he got madder and madder and madder and madder. And then he went on air basically and said, we're here in our studio. And he got into the building and basically acted like I had like a James Bond snuck in. Instead, it was out in the middle with other shows 15 feet away, booths everywhere. You guys had a big stage. So that's the truth of that story, and it was a lot of fun.
So, no, you obviously you didn't sneak into the building because there was security letting everyone in. You had to go through security to get in, and of course you couldn't sneak in with a camera crew. And we had seen you. I'd seen you walking back and forth earlier that day, and so we knew you were there. I didn't know that somebody had invited you onto that stage. I know you had been on Jake's show before. He had interviewed you at least a couple of times that I saw. So I didn't know that was going to happen. And let
me be clear, because I don't want to be deceptive. You guys had one of the main stages. There was only like 2 or 3 in the whole building. Everybody else had little booths.
Right.
Hundreds of broadcasters. I walked by and I said, hey, you want me on? They said, yeah, come back later. And so he wasn't like, get on the stage. They're like, yeah, come back later. I was like, sure. I went and did like 30 minutes of more interviews, was walking back by. He's like, we'll be right back. I thought, hey, jumped up to troll him a little with the t-shirt. So it is true that I did jump up on the stage. I wasn't invited, but I knew him. It was during a break. It was in the middle of the crowd. So half of it's true, half of it's not what he said, but I certainly didn't, cat burglar into the studio.
Okay.
Very pro wrestling.
Okay. But,
yeah.
And the crazy thing to me was that I went to play Austin, Texas. My first time I was playing Austin, and I was eating at that steakhouse across from the Westin, and swear to God, you came in and you were seated right behind me. And I was like, oh my God, Alex Jones is going to kill me. Because you could. You're much bigger than me. You could crush me. But
hey, I thought it was funny. Listen, I love your comedy. I love your show. You're going to get in trouble for this, but I'm a big fan. So's my wife. We watch almost every episode.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Which is a lot. And so, no, I think you're one of the best political brains out there, and you're fair. You're exposing the whole political system as rotten, controlled by big corporations like BlackRock, who are now starting World War III. And you've really, the whole time, stood up for my free speech. And I appreciate that. You got it a little wrong what happened with the whole school shooting thing and what I really said and what I didn't say. So I don't want to even say the name of it, but if that comes up, I can tell you what really happened there. That was all PR firms taking one thing out of context, blowing it up years later as a way to try to take me off the air.
Okay, so yeah, well, I do actually want to talk about that. But first I want to show this. You were on with Tucker Carlson, and he said this. Oh, wait, what happened?
When you got deplatformed, and to this day, no one has ever been more aggressively censored, I don't think, than you. I've apologized to you this in person before. I was in Labrador on a fishing trip and missed the entire thing. I was literally out of cell range. I didn't know what happened, but I got back and I read about it. I felt like it was a major moment in the history of the American media. I don't think anybody defended you when that happened. Anybody with any kind of audience.
For me, when Tim Cook.
So I want to correct the record on that. And I actually did defend you the day it happened. And ever since, here I am on in the Young Turk studio. And I couldn't believe that they did this to you and that everybody at the Young Turks was going along with it. They're supposed to be an independent news show. Of course, now we know they're not. They're corporate funded. And so here, watch this.
Why are we so afraid that human beings can't decipher for themselves what to believe and what not to? This isn't the first time there's been alternative publications spouting news that went against the establishment. You get to do that in America. You get to say, I remember the biggest fake news story of the Washington Post published was that Saddam has weapons of mass destruction. That wasn't just some jagoff in the Washington Post. That was their editorial board saying that. So again, this is not a slippery slope. We've already slipped. Once you ban anybody, you're there, right? They've already suppressed us. They're doing that right now. And now they're just going to go to full out banning. So
are you struck that Apple took down all of his content?
I am struck.
That's pretty so all along they were okay. All this time he has over 2 million subscribers or something?
2.5 on YouTube.
That's crazy. So all of a sudden that they just go, we're done. I think it's the worst thing that could happen, especially with the advent that we don't have, a freedom on the internet, that it's all going to be controlled and they're taking our voices away and they're really taking away access to unify people through ideas, through information. So it's interesting that we can be lied to get in wars. We can be lied to about that we torture, but all of those, those presses, they can thrive and continue to take ad revenue and commercialize war.
Oh, no doubt about it. The way to debunk Alex Jones isn't to suppress his speech. That makes him a martyr. It actually lifts him up and makes more people interested in what he has to say. And then all his accusations of the establishment suppressing him ring true because it actually is happening. This antidote for bad speech in a free, open society is not suppression of that speech. The antidote to bad speech in a free and open society is more speech. You don't all of a sudden start saying, well, I have a secret group of billionaire, Silicon Valley billionaires, and they're going to decide what's actually free speech and what's not. They're going to protect us. I don't need them to protect us. I don't need some nanny state. I don't need the government to protect me from harmful speech. I don't need a billionaire in Silicon Valley to protect me from harmful speech. I've been exposed to harmful speech my entire goddamn life. So what else are you going to start banning? What is fake news? Because I'll tell you, the biggest fake news story of my lifetime was Iraq possesses weapons of mass destruction. That was the biggest fake news propaganda story in the history of my life. Should the Washington Post be deplatformed then because they posted fake news? You know, we just did a story a few weeks ago on the Jimmy Dore show. Facebook took down a newspaper's Facebook page because the newspaper for the 4th of July posted the Declaration of Independence. And they took it down because of hate speech inside the Declaration of Independence. That's a fact. That happened. And they had only posted the first half of the Declaration of Independence, and their Facebook page got a strike or temporary ban. And then they were afraid to post the second half because it might happen again. So that's the world we're living in right now. The antidote to bad speech is not suppression of that speech. The antidote to bad speech is more speech.
That's been debunked, Jimmy.
So I just want to let everybody know that I'm sure Tucker didn't know, but I did defend you, and I defended free speech and the First Amendment, and to the point where I got into screaming matches on air with the executives at the Young Turks over this, and I couldn't. My mind was blown that they were cheering on your censorship. So
what was their take that was like, no,
their take was that you can't post pornography, so they should be able to. And I'm like, that is not what's going on here. And
by the way, Jimmy, if I can respond to that,
yeah,
that's a great point. You notice we didn't talk before this interview.
No,
this is unscripted. I remembered, so I didn't even know you were going to play that clip. I didn't know out of the gates. That's the first thing I brought up was I appreciate that you were one of the few people up front that saw what was happening. They were exaggerating what I said out of context, demonizing me, so that everybody else would accept me being taken off air. So they then had the prototype to get everybody else taken off air. And it later came out in government documents in the Wall Street Journal that indeed they chose me as a colorful, flamboyant person to get the public to accept that as basically training wheels to get everybody on board. But you hit the nail on the head. I've never killed anybody. Madeleine Albright tripled the sanctions on Iraq, as if it wasn't bad enough what George Herbert Walker Bush did, and killed several million people. She was in the middle of office as Secretary of State, and she gets asked by 60 Minutes, Leslie Stahl, 1 million people have died, 500,000 are children. Is that a good price to pay for what you did? She said, yeah, it's a good price to pay. We're proud of it. Basically, we do it again. Okay, she's lauded and worshipped. And then they knew they were lying about WMDs. And you get Colin Powell up there with the anthrax and all of that garbage they knew wasn't true. And so they've killed millions of people. But then I am set up in civilization and society as the worst person who's ever existed, because I agree with a couple callers calling in once saying, yeah, probably is fake. And they literally cobble that together, have a PR firm. I wasn't deplatformed for that. They needed something afterwards because it made me a martyr, what you predicted. So they dredged up this earlier stuff, exaggerated it times 100, then defaulted me in court cases when I gave them all the stuff. There was no case. The judges found me guilty and then told juries that I was worth $400 million when I was actually broken upside down last year. And now it's finally come out in court and my bankruptcy that I was upside down when the judge says, you're not broke, you're a liar, and your lawyers can't put on any evidence. We're going to have a financial expert who hadn't even reviewed my documents get up on the stand and tell the jury I'm worth $400 million. I mean, and now Trump has a judge over his trial, his civil trial in New York. This is what they're doing. And even if you hate Alex Jones or hate the distilled clips people have seen, that's really a straw man, fine, I'm the devil. When you take my speech, just like old-fashioned liberals were smart, they said, let the idiot KKK march. We hate them. They're horrible. But if we take these scumbags' rights, everybody else's is gone, and our rights are too valuable. So, Jimmy, you're an old-fashioned liberal. And I would say Tucker Carlson's an old-fashioned liberal. I know him well. We're friends. We go hunting. I've known him well for 10 years. You're around Tucker. He is a real old-fashioned liberal. He's anti-war. He's pro-free speech. He's for populist. He's against the big corporations. He's for monopoly busting, just like you. And that's why I got arrested for protesting George W. Bush. I was against those wars. I was against the Patriot Act. I don't even really call myself a conservative. I'm a populist, pro-human American, and that's why they feared me and misrepresented what I actually said and what I did.
And so tell me the misrepresentation of what of your positions that got you banned.
When I was able to co-host a show for 2.5 hours a couple of weeks ago with Elon Musk on Spaces, that just the main show had 20 million views, over 100 million views, the clips, biggest spaces that Elon's ever done. And I hear we're going to do another one soon. He was told by Tucker privately and others, hey, Alex was not deplatformed for Sandy Hook. He thought that. And he said on the air, he goes, no, I went to the log and I noticed it was for confronting Oliver Darcy, who had been taking my sponsors and getting me kicked off things and bragging about it. So I saw him in D.C. going in a committee hearing that they were talking about me at later. And I confronted him and said, man, you're an anti-American person. Well, they called that bullying, and that was the final strike that took me off of Twitter at the time. And so then it only made me bigger for a while. And so they now bragged about it once they won these court cases by rigging them. A PR firm put out press releases when they won the Connecticut case, the second one in November of last year, 2022. That'd be 2 years ago, or 2 years back. And I didn't know what happened until later. So yeah, Sandy Hook happens. It's real. I think it happened. It's a terrible tragedy. School shootings, are real. A bunch of academics and people start looking at anomalies. It becomes this huge internet thing, hundreds of millions of views on YouTube. Other people covering it, the professors in Florida and Wisconsin, and a school safety guy, and a bunch of people. And it turned out some of the things they said were true, some weren't. Turns out a couple of them are probably schizophrenic. And I simply covered it on a few shows, had callers call in. What they put in evidence was 22 minutes over 6 years. It was 6 years after it, 7 years after it, they sued me. I hadn't talked about it when they sued me for over 2 years, barely ever talked about it, but they cherry picked it. The PR firm put the clips out, ran it right as I was being right after I was deplatformed in 2018. Suddenly, it's like they were invading a country. The propaganda was in sometimes every newspaper, almost every day, Nightline, or that's already gone, PBS, CNN, every show. Ted Koppel did chime in on other shows, but it wasn't Nightline. Dan Rather, all of them come out against me. I mean, Old Guard, they had 60-minute shows about it. They had NBC Dateline shows about it. And they said he's currently going to their houses. He's currently sending people to their houses. He's currently urinating on graves. None of that ever was put in court. No one ever did any of that anyways. And so then they sue me for years to get all these depositions. We give them all the discovery. There's nothing there. And they go, you didn't give us everything. You're defaulted. So now we're going to have a trial on damages, but you're already guilty. And then the judges in both places wouldn't let us. They had my phone because we gave them the phones. When they go, oh, we hacked, he actually gave us his phone. No. We'd given them all my phones. The real reason the lawyers got sanctioned is with the phones, they accidentally just gave them all raw, and they gave them some of the Sandy Hook medical records from those depositions. So the lawyers did mess up, but they already had the phones. So I'd given them all the phones. How am I not giving them all my text messages, all my emails are getting defaulted, and then they have from my lawyers a whole phone? Okay? And so this is the type of crap. In the Perry Mason moment, they go, we got you, we got your phone, and you didn't give us the stuff. And I went, you got my phone because I gave it to my lawyers. And they're like, well, you gave us the raw phone, you son of a bitch. So I'm like, yeah, my lawyers messed up and did that. I had nothing to hide. I'm like, here's my 3 phones of the last 7 years. I kept them, take all the things off. And the best they got was my wife taking a dick pic of me that I never took a dick pic. And I'm like, look at I go, oh my God, my wife goes, remember that time you were asleep? I took a picture. And so they have a picture of my ding dong. So that's the type of weirdness that goes on. Then the PR firms, after they won, came out and said, and they got bought by the biggest PR firm in the country right after that they were already big out of New York.
Who were they?
And I forget the exact name. If you want, I'll Google it.
It's not the ones that try to do Rogan, is it? The scumbag Midas Touch, Meisel's brothers. That's the ones who got that thing going at Rogan, the big N-word Spotify controversy because he mentioned ivermectin. That's those guys.
Yeah, I don't want to get into inside baseball because Joe's asked me not to, but let's just say you're hot. You're close.
I was just curious because I bet there's a couple.
There was a whole bunch of them. It was a whole bunch. I mean, I could search engine it. It has a particular name. They put out press releases when they quote won the case saying, "Hey, we brought his evil to the attention of the public in 2018. Then we got him sued, and now we're going to shut him down." So what they did is they went and cobbled together some stuff, blew it all up, exaggerated it times 100. And then, I mean, I had people in the grocery store going, listen, you son of a bitch, you stopped going to their houses. This is even like a year ago. And I'm like, I never went to their houses. I've never been to Connecticut. I've now since been there at the court case. I'm like, I didn't, no one ever went to their houses. No one peed on, there's no proof. They just get up on the stand. Listen to this. There was an FBI agent. I never said his name. Look this up. It was in court. They admitted it. Never said his name. No one ever covered it on my network at Infowars. Didn't know who he was. The internet saw him with his gun pointing up the wrong direction, with no FBI stuff on when he went in, and he is an FBI agent. And he sued me, saying because a few people called his office to see if he was real, that was his testimony, he got $95 million. I never said his name, didn't know who he was till he sued me. And then my lawyer goes, has Mr. Jones ever said your name? No. Well, what happened to you? And he goes, well, I had to take 6 hours of psychological stuff because one time a man called me at the office to see if I was really an FBI agent. $95 million. I mean, that is in the trial where I couldn't respond, and the judge gave us over 30 things I couldn't say. Couldn't say I was in bankruptcy. Couldn't say that I only talked about it in 22 minutes in all those years. Never could tell people I'd apologized before they ever sued me because I'm like, I'm not the Sandy Hook guy. I apologize. I think it happened. I was just playing devil's advocate. And both judges in Connecticut and Texas literally had the same list I couldn't say. And that's why when I did say, I'm in bankruptcy, she goes, shut it down, get the jury out, get off the stand, go sit down. And she goes, Mr. Jones, you're a liar. You're not bankrupt. You're not broke. And she goes, now, financial expert, and we could not respond, got up for a full day and said, this man, I've examined his books, never examined our books, is worth $400 million. I was millions in the hole then. Okay, millions in the hole then. And I'm like, here's my filed bankruptcy. The judge said, you're not entering that. And so again, whether you think I'm good or bad, folks, they murdered justice in a PR run operation. And then, I'm not supposed to get into this, but you weren't warm. You were white hot with what you said. They then got the text messages, and imagine whose text messages are on there. Innocuous stuff like, hey, let's get a steak. Hey, what's going on? Hey, man, come to the club tonight. And then there was a behind-the-scenes harassment operation that went on against somebody. So this is dragnet, just attack, go after whoever you can. It's unbelievable.
It's what they do to espionage, like people for espionage.
Yeah. So, and you know,
well, I'm ranting on that, but let me just throw this bookmark in and then I'll shut up, Jimmy. I knew this when Obama left office in the John Warren Defense Authorization Act 2017. His last act, major act, was to sign the defense authorization. He got $2 billion in there to set up the Office of Countering Foreign Disinformation Propaganda Act, which then started the Trump's a Russian agent, and now we can spy on his whole operation, and we can get General Flynn because he's a communist. And then now they admit with the weaponization hearings, off of that wheel, at the middle of that wheel, they built the spokes of the censorship, the surveillance, the FBI, the CIA, coordinating all the censorship. That's all admitted. I knew that. This would get no news coverage. I remember right when I was deplatformed 4 years ago, watching the House Armed Services Committee meeting where they had the Pentagon's experts saying, Mr. Jones is a Russian disinformation agent. We're tracking him, and we're now working with big tech and AI to block his Russian influence. I have the clip. So what I'm saying is exactly what your co-host just said is that is what I was, and we know a 3-letter agency used law firms. The top Democrat law firms in the country ran this. Law firms, PR firms, but it was the Justice Department. Listen to this, in my bankruptcy, and they were done up to send an email. This is a year ago. The Justice Department sent an email to my famous bankruptcy lawyer here, and well-known, super respected, done some of the biggest bankruptcies in the country for like chemical giants, and says, Mr. Jones will not be afforded the bankruptcy system. This is a hurdle he will not get across. And then the Justice Department came into the case, and when I'm in these depositions, they have 1 to 2 federal agents in the room hoping to find something. And I've been so transparent, so real, all the bookkeeping checked out, everything was true. Remember all the headlines? Alex Jones, he's got secret accounts. Alex Jones has offshore accounts. Alex Jones has hundreds of millions of dollars. You can go to Bloomberg. I was actually covering today. You can go to the Connecticut News. Alex Jones is broke, sold his car and his guns and his basically wife's jewelry. I am 3 million in the hole right now. You can read them. Here's the headline. Alex Jones is broke and selling his stuff. Here's how he got there. Bloomberg. Alex Jones gets green light to sell his guns and cars. Bloomberg. They now admit that I'm 3 million in the hole. So again, I have under penalty of perjury all this. So now they flipped from, oh, we were wrong, he didn't hide $400 million, to, oh, sorry. Oh, they also sued my dad, my mom, my family. My dad spent his whole savings, who was a dentist for 49 years. My dad has no money, can't even pay his property taxes. My dad spent $1.5 million in the last couple, and they think it's funny. They think it's funny claiming my dad had hidden money. I know I'm ranting. I'm going to shut up now.
So, and the reason why, so I had said that, well, first they come for Alex Jones, and then they're going to come for us. If you're doing independent news and you're speaking against the wars, they're going to come for us. And so that's why you have to stand up right now. And of course, nobody at the Young Turks will ever go against the wars. They're always for the wars. They're always for whatever the establishment wants, whether it's smearing Julian Assange or pushing Russiagate hoax or COVID lockdowns and demeaning ivermectin and lying about that. They're all for all of it. So that's why they didn't care that you got banned, because they're never ever going to go against the establishment.
Well, they're given talking points. Nobody, I can tell, nobody gives you talking points. Nobody gives me talking points. And that's why they don't like us, is because that's why they don't like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan says exactly what he really thinks, and they don't like authenticity, but the people like it. So yeah, you were big back at the time you defended me. You were big. You're gigantic now. So it's kind of fair what Tucker said is no huge show defended Jones. No show he heard of. So what, it went from you, and then it immediately went to journalists, and then it went to leading journalists, then it went to the leading doctors and scientists in their field, and then it went to the former president of the United States. They banned everybody. So it wasn't just Alex Jones. They banned anybody and everybody, including anybody who had any counter narrative to the establishment narrative around war, around COVID, around lockdowns, around January 6th, around anything. Anybody who had anything to say that the CIA, the FBI, and the establishment didn't want them to say, they banned, they censored, and they discredited. And I've firsthand have knowledge of that.
You know what? One of the first bullshit testing on who we can do this to was Gamergate. There's people that work in real journalism that to this day still bring that up like that was a real thing. And it was the exact same kind of bullshit. I had the whole media do it to me for a week. Mm-hmm. Charlie Rose, I'll never forget that tweeting at me. Then he got Me Too'd later, that piece of shit. Yeah. Hilarious.
Yeah. So do you think the reason why they went after you so hard and they had to take you down, they had to do all this nefarious stuff, twist your words to take you down, was so that they could set a precedent, so they knew what was coming, so they knew that they were going to want to censor anybody and everybody, and so they had to have somebody to start with, and that's what that was?
I actually know this, and I always forget the name of the article because I don't usually subscribe to stuff, but I had to get behind a paywall to find it. About 6 months before I got deplatformed in August of 2018, when Tim Cook literally held a powwow meeting, he admitted and decided to curate me, and they wouldn't even say why. And then they gave some fake reasons later, not Sandy Hook. I remember 6 months before that, I don't remember the exact Wall Street Journal headline, but there was another article about it called "Hold On to Your Tinfoil Hat, Alex Jones." I think it was like Gizmodo. "Hold on to your tinfoil hat, Alex Jones. You're about to be taken off the air." And then it was a synopsis of the Wall Street Journal. This Wall Street Journal article was one of those articles for the corporate elite. And so it was like 25 pages long. I go subscribe to it, and I forget the exact headline, and it was NATO meeting with the tech heads in Europe and meeting with News Corps. And they said in the article, don't worry, when News Corps splits and sells its entertainment division, we're still going to be popular. So this was to the shareholders of News Corps through the Wall Street Journal that they actually also own on the news division when it split. And I'm reading this 20-something page article, and it says, soon the internet will be like cable TV. I think they use Netflix as an example. You'll have 1,000 channels maybe, but that'll be it. We're not going to let people go to all these old sites and alternative sites. And we're going to do it by going after Assange. When the left doesn't stand up for him and the journalists don't, we'll have the left. Then we're demonizing Alex Jones. He's a horrible person. When we then take him off the air and the right wing doesn't stand up because they don't want to be next, Then when we take off the next person, the next person, the next person, it's human nature. No one will stand up and we'll take them all, liberals and conservatives. And I've got to find that article again. But it was a 20-something page battle diagram. So I go on air with it and I say, I'm about to be taken off, because that was a high-level article, not for pop culture, but for real business people to invest in News Corp when they split their entertainment division. And they explained, we're going to end freedom on the internet and we're going to use this punk to do it. So it wasn't that I was that important. I was big, sure, and I was populist, and they fear that. And I was uncontrolled, but they chose me because I did do clownish stuff a lot, and I still do. I have fun. I'm on the air 4 hours a day, and so I was just chosen as patient zero along with Julian Assange. It was me and Julian is who was in the article, and it's very cold blooded. So yes, they admit that I was the first domino.
And the feds tried to take your cat, right? Were you able to keep him?
It's actually true. My wife, the cat's like 4 years old now. We got for my now 6-year-old daughter, she wanted a cat. The other cat we love so much had snuck out of the house and got down the street and got run over. And so we heard that ragdoll cats were really great. Another Joe Rogan story says this is the best cats ever, super smart. So I get a ragdoll, and folks, they are amazing. It's like a dog. It's super smart. We go on walks on the golf course. It follows us. It's amazing. Listen, one day I'll walk in when the cat's a year old, and it's on the toilet pissing. Didn't teach it how. It just saw us doing it. Swear to God, strike me down if it's not true. And so my point is, I'm in a deposition with the U.S. Justice Department and like 7 lawyers deposing me in the conference room. They came here in a conference room right through those doors, and they look at me, and the federal Justice Department says, Mr. Jones, how much did your cat cost? And I said, I think it cost $2,000. And they said, all right, well, we're going to put that on there as an asset you're going to have to give up. And I said, is that a joke? And they said, no, we're serious. But they're going to give me an opportunity. My bankruptcy's almost over. I'm selling everything right now, which I don't even care about, including this watch soon. And I'm going to have my dad or somebody buy the cat for me. So no, they are trying to take the cat.
Wow, kind of unbelievable.
I mean, I know that doesn't sound real.
Sounds real to me. I think the pigs.
The news called them and they admitted it.
They think that's great. Like they think, yeah, his whole life. It's like cancel pigs, but with the real full force of the U.S. government behind them.
By the way, the Willie Nelson story is true too.
Well, tell me about that.
Okay, I used to know Willie really well. I used to go to his house and play chess with him outside Austin. And because he was real anti-war, and he hated George Bush, and he saw my movies about the war, and so he came to one of my movie showings one time. And so for about 2 years, I hung out with him probably 10, 15 times. And a few years, about 10 years ago, I went to dinner with him once, but he's kind of, even then his brain was not 100% what he used to be. But I knew him when he was 74, 75. He even invited me out to Maui and stuff. I never went. But the point was, we got to be decent friends. And I'd go out to his house and hang out at Luck with him, and I'd smoke a lot of pot with him. I'm not a big pot guy, but he smoked pot with Willie. And he has those vaporizer volcanoes back before most people heard of them. This is like, in like 2007 and 8 and stuff. And we would smoke pot till I couldn't walk and playing chess. And he would just he would suck on it and keep saying, want more? And he would just keep going. I mean, when he says, roll me up and smoke me. But the point was, when Willie Nelson hands you that thing, it's dripping with spit. And I'm like, I'm not going to wipe this off. It's kind of cool. I'm not gay, but I was like, it's Willie Nelson. So it's just funny. I always make that joke to family and stuff that I had Willie Nelson spit in my mouth. And I was telling a story just the other day to family and some friends. And I go, wait a minute, Jimmy Dore spit into my mouth. Because if you watch the video, I'm like, oh yeah. And all of a sudden he goes, meh. And I remember I was like, is that iced tea or Coke? I got so much of it in my mouth. It's just a funny story.
It was actually called Honest Tea. That's the irony there. So,
anyways, I'm just fired up to be on and to actually get out of the matrix, because I am like in Phantom Zone on my own show weekdays. I'm on some radio stations. A lot of folks come to Infowars.com. But other than that, the worst part about being canceled and being deplatformed is they can now build this fake person however they want. And so they don't just silence you. That'd be okay. Like, go away like Obi-Wan Kenobi. No, they then build this person you're not. And so, it gets worse. They'd run headlines, Alex Jones sends child porn to Sandy Hook families. And I couldn't go on Twitter, I couldn't go on Facebook and say that's not true. They subpoenaed 9 million emails. They said, no, it's not enough. We want all, and we were dumb enough, because why are we even storing it, to have 15 years of emails on this email system. And we said, screw it. My lawyer said, nothing to hide. We searched it. None of me scheming against them. None of me talking about them. I had crazy sending me emails about Sandy Hook, which they later put in the court. Look what this lady sent you. Doesn't that sound bad? Oh, that's the proof I'm bad. And someone who was attacking me for questioning Sandy Hook sent me emails with embedded invisible links to child porn. They just happened to scan the millions of emails and find the hidden links. So we got a letter from the FBI in days saying Mr. Jones is the victim of this. They were actually nice and did that. And Jones is not a suspect. These were unopened emails, because they give it to the FBI. These are unopened emails that he never opened. He's the victim of someone sending it to him. It's like swatting somebody, but another form of But the headlines didn't say that. The headlines said Alex Jones sends child porn. Really? Why am I not in jail? So again, that tells you about these PR firms.
Yeah.
It's like you're running for office, but just to live your life.
Yeah. Yes. So let me just ask you just a general question. How much of our reality do you think is manipulated by elites or intelligence tricks?
It depends on the person. Some people are totally oblivious and pay attention to nothing except for sports or sitcoms or whatever it is they're into. Other people are political, both right-wing and left-wing, and think they know what's going on. And they're establishment right-wing, they're in a facsimile of disinformation. And they're establishment left-wing, they're really in a hologram. And then you've got just normal, populist, informed people, from blue-collar workers up to academics, that just really get the fact that the public trust has been broken. The mainstream media lies on purpose. They're very nasty. They're trying to divide the country for social control. That was in the WikiLeaks, emails from a head psychologist of a psychology department. I think it was Columbia, but I forget the exact one. And this is certified real WikiLeaks. And he says, we're losing because people aren't paying attention to us. It's not that they hate us or even agree with us or disagree. It's that they don't even care about us anymore. So we're going to have to go to culture war. And this is in 2016 in the middle of the election. So,
right.
so they're using, that they legalized back in 2010. Obama, remember?
Smith-Mundt Modernization Act.
Legalized propaganda. Exactly. You guys have covered that a lot. I've seen you do that. And so that's the CIA. So they always planted stories overseas that came back on purpose. They had Operation Mockingbird that came out in the Frank Church committees in the 70s, late 70s. But this is directly the CIA going after you. And look, I can speak to the CIA. People always go, oh, he admits he's an agent. He admits he's bad. No, I had my late uncle was high level in Army Special Operations and like running stuff in major operations in Iran-Contra. And I had a other family that was involved in back when HUMAT was really big, before it was all digital. And so growing up, I had family talking trash about the government, how they're lying, how they're full of crap, how both parties are bad, how it's all big corporations, about all they did. And then this is me listening around the corner to family where both people, have been in this. And I'm like, yeah, that son of a bitch. All we did is go around paying off the mafia and then cracking heads. They didn't follow our orders. And yeah, those bastards are smuggling kids out of Guatemala. They ought to all be shot. And like, I'm sitting there around the corner. This was both sides of my family, by the way, had people that were in this. And that sounds like, ooh, it's mysterious. No, it's like working at Walmart. Before the mid-90s, when signals intelligence and digital spying and the NSA really got to where it could grab every call and every email, it was 90% HUMAT, 10% signals. They phased that all out in the mid-90s. But before that, the CIA didn't just have its regular budget. It was, dealing cocaine. It was everywhere. It's like saying, oh, I had family work for Coca-Cola, except it's a government criminal mafia. And they recruit the best in their classes, patriotic. They had programs in the 60s. Oh, you want to be part of NASA in the early 60s. And kids would go who were top of their class. a recruiter would come into the school and say, oh, you're top of your class, and I see you do all this, and you can shoot really good, and you filled out this survey for NASA that you camp out sometimes for a week by yourself when you were like 12 years old, and you've done all this stuff. We want you to join NASA, and we want you to come to the University of Texas when you're 15 next year, and we want to put you in a program. That happened to one of my family very close to me, and by the time he was about 19, he figured it out and was like, whoa, I'm not doing this. Okay, so I mean, but I mean, you couldn't swing a stick in the dark, in Texas at that time and not hit these people. And so, I mean, I've had growing up, a German, East German at the house for 3 months who's being trained how to do something. I mean, so I'm telling you, that's how close I am to this. I know all about this stuff.
So, okay. Let me just get your take on the Ukraine war, because the American people have no idea what actually the Ukraine war is about. They have no idea that there was a coup that the CIA instigated with the help of the Nazis inside Ukraine. They don't know that there were 2 peace agreements that Ukraine violated, not Russia. And they think that one day Vladimir Putin just woke up and got a bug up his ass and decided to invade Ukraine. And that's his first step into invading the rest of Europe, which it just seems mental. And because it is. And so I wanted this recently came out. Ukraine ambassador Chalyi, who participated in peace talks with Russia in the spring of 2022, because there was a peace agreement. As soon as this war started, there was immediately a peace agreement. And remember, Boris Johnson was flown at the behest of NATO to talk to Zelensky to squash it. Well, here, this ambassador is going to talk about that very thing. Here it is.
I was in that moment in the group of Ukrainian negotiators. We negotiate with Russian delegation practically 2 months, in March and April, the possible peaceful settlement agreement between Ukraine and Russia. And we, as you remember, concluded so-called Istanbul communique. And we were very close in the middle of April, in the end of April, to finalize our war with some peaceful settlement. For some reasons, it was postponed. But to my mind, Putin, this is my personal view, Putin in 1 week after started his aggression in 24 February last year, very quickly understood he did mistake and tried to do everything possible to conclude agreement with Ukraine. And Istanbul communique, it was his personal decision to accept the text of this communique, which totally far away from the initial proposal of Russia, ultimatum proposal of Russia, which they put before the Ukrainian delegation in Minsk. So we managed to find a very real compromise. So Putin really wanted to reach some peaceful settlement with Ukraine. It's very important to remember.
So there it was. That's an ambassador who was part of the negotiations in April of 2022. They had an agreement, a compromise with Putin. He's saying Putin really wanted to have peace. He really wanted to end the war. And of course, that all got squashed. Now, Putin has talked about this, and we've covered this, and it all got squashed because the United States and the UK, meaning NATO, didn't want it. And so they had Boris Johnson go to Ukraine and tell Zelensky, you better not do this. Plus, he also had the Nazis saying, in Ukraine, if you do it, we're going to hang you from a tree. And which they probably would have. So he didn't do it. So he squashed the peace agreement. So again, the aggressors are the United States, NATO. The warmongers is the military-industrial complex. And it's not, they have to make Putin out to be this caricature of a thug, even though meanwhile we're occupying a country right next door called Syria, a third of that country. And which third do you think we're occupying? The part with the oil. So what do you say to this? What have you told your viewers about Ukraine?
Well, I've told them the exact same thing you've said because it's the truth. If you go back to 9 years ago, the Victoria Nuland got caught on a release tape. She didn't deny it. Yeah. The ambassador to the EU saying, screw the EU, screw what they want. We're going to basically start, a war. And then 7 years ago, a few years after that overthrow, in that coup, where they attacked the government, killed all the police, and, you know, burned down buildings and installed their new leader that was, you know, more anti-Russia. They then had a CNN report with Fareed Zakaria where George Soros went on there and bragged that he got $5 billion from the State Department and had done the coup a few years before. And then U.S. troops and advisors began to come into the country and train the Ukrainian death squads, because, you know, the country split between Slavic and kind of Germanic groups. And that was a split in World War II, but it's still where Russia was founded 1,000 years ago, and is mainly Slavic. But Europe's been pushing the Russians for hundreds of years, basically back towards the Russian border. And so they began to attack those 99% Russian areas. And Putin kept saying, stop doing it, stop doing it, stop doing it. And he said, if you try to bring them into NATO, I'm going to take Crimea, which he then did a few years later. And he said, I'm going to take the Donbass regions and Donetsk and some of those other areas there on the western border of Russia as a security zone. And so it was a provocation by NATO. I'm not defending Russia. I'm not a Russia file, but I have studied the history of it. And then I knew, that's how I was able to predict in October 2 years ago, plus before the Russians went in February, that there would be a war in that area, that Putin would go in by February if he was going to, because that was the intel I got from people I know in the military whose sons were over there already training Ukrainians, and they knew it was coming. And so when the Russians lied and said, we're not going to invade a few weeks before, and the Reuters reporter confronted the State Department CIA guy and said, you're Alex Jones now, claiming the Russians are going to do a false flag and invade or whatever. But I was saying, no, the Russians are going to go in, and they don't want people to know because NATO's moving weapons up against their border. And if Ukraine joins NATO, they've said they're going to put nuclear weapons there.
Yes.
And so this is a major escalation. People don't know in the Cuban Missile Crisis that Kennedy put medium-range Hercules missiles
in Turkey,
and what was the other missile? The Hawk missiles with nukes in Turkey. And so that's when the Russians then put nukes in Cuba.
That's why they don't take the point about that with Ukraine, because we've provoked it before and thought we should be allowed to do that.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so Russia, Putin's told the truth. By the way, you talk about this ambassador saying that you just mentioned, you just played. Putin at the time said, I only want a security zone and I only want to make you sue for peace. And he was never planning to take the capital. He did that to pin down their forces while he secured those areas. And so he said, I want a peace deal. He gave speeches at the time saying this can end right now, say you're not going to enter NATO, and say you're not going to attack these eastern areas, and I'll completely pull out. But he said, if you don't pull out, I will take as much of Ukraine as we have to secure our border. Because remember, 90% of the Russians live in Western Russia. And Putin said, we don't need more land. We're the biggest country in the world. We have more resources than even Africa. It's like 3 USAs can fit into Russia. He said, we don't want to expand. We want to stabilize. We want a peace economy. He cut defense spending until this war started for the last decade. So he's not in an offensive position. The globalists controlling America are in an offensive position, and it has to end. Now they're going to conscript women. Now, the former head of U.S. forces in Europe last week just called for them to conscript women. Zelensky's calling up 500,000 people, and they know they've already lost. So it's purely a political diversion and a money laundering operation, and it is pure war profiteering at its most sick and most evil.
It's just amazing to me how well the propaganda works. We learn nothing from the Iraq War. I mean, as a general people, we learn nothing from the Iraq War. We learn nothing from 20 years of lies and the Afghanistan paper that showed that Afghan was a 20-year lie. That we did learn nothing from Libya turning the most successful country in Africa and turning into a failed state with open slave markets. We learned nothing from Vietnam. We learned nothing from Syria and the lies about gas attacks. We learned nothing from Yemen. Nothing. We've learned nothing. And they could just pull off this Ukraine, and then you get these Rachel Maddows and Sean Hannity's and Anderson Coopers to go on and just lie about the war. And you know they're lying because I know the truth. And who am I? I'm a comedian. And so I know the truth about it. I know they have to know about it because they have $1 million staffs. I don't have that.
And now they're not. they're not just picking fights with third world Muslim countries so they can just pump trillions in, like Afghanistan, and steal it. No, ladies and gentlemen, and I know the Afghans aren't Arab, but I'm talking about the Arabs, Middle East, and also the Pashtuns and the Afghans over there in Central Asia. Now they're picking fights with the largest nuclear power in the world that lost a third of its population fighting Hitler. So just like Napoleon went to destroy his empire, the American empire is going back to Russia to die. I love America. I'm a loyal American. Putin isn't censoring me. Putin isn't stealing elections. Putin isn't taking my political front-runner candidates off the ballot. Putin isn't dissolving my borders and telling people come up here for free stuff. Putin isn't shipping in fentanyl to kill 100,000 people a year. He's not doing any of that. And it's all our hijacked, crazy, out-of-control government that's run out of people to start fights with. So now they're starting fights with the biggest nuclear power in the world. Somebody needs to take the keys away from these maniacs.
So speaking about, how Americans are they're the most propaganda. I say Americans are the most propagandized people in the world, and they don't know it, right? At least in the old Soviet Union, when somebody saw something on the news or read it in the paper, they knew it was probably propaganda. Same thing in China. But in America, people literally think that Lawrence O'Donnell and Jake Tapper and Laura Ingraham are telling you the truth. It's just mind-blowing to me. I just went to a couple of Christmas parties, and it was like watching a wind-up cartoon doll of people just repeat propaganda back to me, whether it was about Fauci, I was talking to a guy, he just got his booster last week. He just got his booster.
He has 8? He has all 8?
I'm guessing he does.
I don't know anybody who catches them all.
Okay. Anyway, and so so just to speak to this, now people turn. Now, I used to be a big fan of Bill Maher's. And so Bill Maher recently said that, now, it's been clear to me since I started doing this show that Bill Maher is ignorant on purpose, right? Either he's mind-controlled or he's ignorant on purpose. Because it's just so obvious. Again, if I have access to this information, a guy who works at HBO with $1 million staff, he also has access to this information, and he's either mind controlled or. So listen to what Roseanne asked him this question. This is very interesting.
No wonder I don't remember this.
No shit, you blocked it out, MK Ultra.
Who's that?
Bill Maher doesn't know who's that. And I don't think that's a joke. I think he's. Do you mean Martin Luther King Ultra? Is that what he thinks? It's unbelievable. Can you believe he pretends not to know what MK Ultra is, or do you think he really doesn't know, or do you think he's actually a victim of it?
I think Bill Maher is lying there. He also said he doesn't know who Klaus Schwab is, I think, in the same interview.
Yes, here, let me play it. Here it is.
That's the mind control program you're under, Bill. Yeah.
So who's Klaus Schwab?
The head of the WEF.
What's that?
This is mind-blowing to me. He doesn't know who the people are. He doesn't know what MK.
Aryan.
So
the Igor of Klaus Schwab.
So not long ago, Bill had on someone named Bella Thorne on his podcast, and she was offended because he mocked her pronouns. So who the fuck is Bella Thorne? She's a 26-year-old actress who, unlike Klaus Schwab, the WEF, MK Ultra, that's someone who Bill actually has heard of. So he's heard of some no-name actress nobody's ever heard of, but he's never heard of MK Ultra, WEF, or Klaus Schwab. Boy, he is the smartest guy in the room, as long as the room is filled with dumb shit libs. Am I right?
Well, that's right. And now he's trying to act like he's more populist because he knows people are waking up. Look, he's not stupid. We know Leonardo DiCaprio and hundreds of movie stars get paid to go to the WEF, flown on private jets. I bet a lot of money, I don't know this for a fact, that he's been invited to the World Economic Forum. It's all over the news. It's massive coverage during their events. And I mean, people knew who it was 20 years ago. They certainly knew 10 years ago. And then in the last 3-4, the liberty movement, the populist movement, it trends on Twitter every week. It's all over the place. So I don't believe that he doesn't know what MK Ultra is. I mean, even History Channel and Discovery Channel have had hundreds of programs, literally since it's been on for 40 years, 35 years. I mean, I've seen 50 programs. I don't even watch a lot of TV about MK Ultra. It's on PBS. Dr. Ewing Cameron in Canada, over 10,000 kids over 30 years taken from foster homes and stuff and electroshocked and given drugs and programmed into new personalities. And they had congressional hearings on it in the 90s and the 2000s and in 1977. And he doesn't know about MK Ultra that Theodore Kaczynski, the Unabomber, was in. LA Times, Alexander Cockburn looked that up. So I don't believe, no, he's playing dumb because he knows these are the things you don't talk about.
I mean, come on. If the WEF and Klaus Schwab were real, I'm sure Bill Maher would have heard about it.
I don't believe in nonsense.
By the way, Jimmy, that's the old tactic. Just 10 years ago, they would have New York Times articles saying Alex Jones feverishly was having a schizoid event in Virginia outside a hotel conference center, imagining there were men with sunglasses and helicopters. Meanwhile, the King of Spain's there, the head of the Defense Department, Henry Kissinger, world leaders. They had Marines on top of the building with State Department security, literal black helicopters we got video of. Okay, it's in my film Endgame and others. And then the New York Times reviewed a film I was in called The New World Order and said it did not exist. Now, by then, the Bilderberg Group was set up after World War II between what was left of the Nazis and the UK and America to kind of reconstitute Europe and the Marshall Plan. Their own documents been released by the Congressional Records Office. This is an official group, but they wouldn't cover it, and they would say it wasn't real, even though the Bilderberg Group, as of 15 years ago, went public, started putting out press releases about who would be there, but that it's secret, okay? So even 5 years after they're publicly admitting they exist and putting out where they're going to meet, the New York Times was saying it does not exist.
So, yeah, I mean, I always, again, when I was, they made it seem like if you talked about the Bilderberg Group, you are some conspiracy, crazy tinfoil hat person.
There is no mafia.
And now, right, there is no, right. Hey, the first rule of MK Ultra is there is no MK Ultra. Am I right? And so I don't think Bill Maher is controlled by the CIA. I think he's controlled by another 3-letter organization. It's called HBO.
That is what it is.
Yeah.
He does sound like Hannity when he's asked about Bilderberg.
Oh.
Sean Hannity, watch him play dumb.
Oh, he plays dumb too?
Oh, yeah.
But now I know.
He always plays dumb.
So the Bilderbergs had a meeting in Washington, D.C. It was maybe a year or two ago. And Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone went and covered it. And that's how I know for sure it's for a real thing. And he documented the people who were there and the people who were coming in and out.
Yeah, they meet 3 years in 3 years in a row in Europe. And then every 4th year they meet in Chantilly, Virginia at this, usually they meet at like 5-star places. This place is nice. I've stayed there before they got in there. But it's like a 4-star giant conference center surrounded by defense contractors, Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. I mean, literally, it's a conference center with a golf course so they can play golf because they play golf the 4th day.
Plenty of hookers,
like
I'm sure.
Day. And it's surrounded, but something your co-host, everything he says is key. Notice he said, the mafia doesn't exist. And that's the parallel I use with this.
Yeah.
It was until the mid-1950s, Congress and J. Edgar Hoover, who was being blackmailed by the FBI over his cross-dressing, that's come out, he would testify to Congress, J. Edgar Hoover, head of the FBI, look this up, I'm sure you guys know a lot of history, so you know about it, that La Cosa Nostra and the mafia was a myth and that there was not an Italian mafia. Of course, we now know there's mafias in all groups. And it wasn't until some rogue FBI agents planted a bug in a farmhouse, remember in Connecticut, I think it was, and they caught like the 15 mob heads, like in The Godfather, in this big palatial farmhouse, meeting around this big table, carving up the country, and then suddenly we all know the Italians have a mafia. I mean, it's the same thing, but they don't want us to know there's a global BlackRock corporate mafia that wants to control the world, that cloaks itself in liberalism and wokeism to give them political cover while they drive us into World War III, devalue our currencies, and just destroy us.
So speaking of that, the new mafia, which a lot of people, I'm one of them, the new mafia, Silicon Valley, the WEF, the military industrial complex. Well, look at this story. Mark Zuckerberg says Facebook of the future will be powered by telepathic thoughts. Facebook users, and this is according to him, Facebook users in the future will share telepathic thoughts and feelings to each other, Mark Zuckerberg claims. You're going to just be able to capture a thought, what you're thinking or feeling in kind of its ideal and perfect form in your head, and be able to share that with the world in a format they can get that. He called on people to think less in nations, but as a citizen of a global community using innovations and technology for progress. This sounds like exactly what every person who was deemed a conspiracy theorist. Here it is. Here's the head of Silicon Valley, the head of Facebook, Instagram, the billionaire himself, Mark Zuckerberg, saying, hey, don't think of, just like, you remember that movie, Network, where Ned Beatty gave that speech where he says, there are no countries, there are only companies in the international transfer of dollars, and you have upset the natural order of the transfer of dollars, and you must atone. That's what he's saying right there. He's giving the Ned Beatty speech. He's saying there are no countries, there are only companies.
You have meddled with the tidal forces of nature, Mr. Neal, and you must atone. You get up there on your little bitty 18-inch screen and you talk about nations and borders and peoples. There are no nations. There are no borders. There are no peoples. There are only, and that's actually the globalist speech. I've actually been in boardrooms similar to that, and those are off-record meetings when they were trying to get me to join News Corps and trying to get me 15 years ago to go to Fox and meetings like, listen, this is all over. It's a corporate global system, Alex. You'll have more in effect joining us. Come work with us. Henry Kissinger had the head of his Kissinger group one time in front of my producer. And this wasn't off record, so I've told the story. Say, come to New York. We want you to work for us. You can lead the liberty movement, but that's how you'll have a seat at the table. So they go around and buy people up like they just buy up baseball cards. But go back to Zuckerberg. He's literally saying, we're going to read your mind. Facebook's going to read your mind. Well, that's super creepy. Well, how are you going to read our mind? And again, but he also put 24 billion or whatever it was into the metaverse, which was a hellscape. So, but it shows you where they want to take us. They don't want just the Internet of Things. They want us. They want our minds. They want our bodies.
You can order pizza with your mind. Did you see that in 60 Minutes?
Yes, you can order.
That idiot, the one guy was like, did you just order pizza with your mind? Like he couldn't believe.
It's the Matrix. It's the Matrix. Yeah. It's the Matrix. You're going to be in a pod. And they have patents now for beds you lay in, and the heat from your body powers the computers.
Wow, that's very Matrix-like. That's unbelievable.
Originally the Matrix, it wasn't supposed to be batteries because humans are shitty batteries. It was supposed to be they were hooked up as a neural network for the computer, but the dipshit producer said, no one's going to get that. Say they're batteries.
Oh, really?
And so that idiocy of it being batteries, it was originally something much like, not too smart, just a good thing. That battery thing scientifically doesn't hold up at all because a dumb fuck producer said that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's true. And so let me add a caveat. There is a Wired magazine article came out about 12 years ago. Was talking about Eric Schmidt and the founding with In-Q-Tel and the CIA and the NSA, who already had the search engine system where they would grab all the data and emails and internet traffic and phone calls and create word messages, and then if they wanted to search what we were saying, Google was the NSA search engine for a program called Echelon. This is all declassified. And so Google at their first meeting, when the Pentagon signed on, said, we're going to create the first AI, but it's going to be a cybernetic AI where you're a neural network and where we get billions of people in live time dialed into us, and then we'll be able to send messages back and stimuli to control them as the original inventors of the internet in an ARPA-DARPA program in 1960 where a Pentagon psychiatrist, looked this up, created the intergalactic communication system. It was on paper and said there would be big TVs everywhere that gave you messages. You would carry a handheld computer that would track everything you did, and daily you download it into the system. It was all theoretical, and that they would then use the intergalactic communication system to program humanity. So this is an original theoretical plan that they developed the theoretic blueprint for in 1960. Look it up. You can't make this up. And that's what Google is today. And it is artificially intelligent because it's a computer interfacing with us, and it is AI. But the secret is AI is us. That's why when you see AI art, it's just throwing what we've done, plagiarizing our writing, our videos, our photos, our poetry. And we go, this is beautiful because it's narcissistic. We're looking at ourselves in the pool of water.
Representation. That's stupid shit. Yeah. I always thought Twitter seemed like a big crazy brain when you look at the whole thing. And I'm like, oh, how do we know Twitter's not already alive?
No, that's the secret. Elon Musk is using it to program his AI Grok. And so they took everybody else off the internet because Google's training its system and didn't want anybody like us on there. I've been told this by high-level people, leave it at that. And so, yes, Musk actually bought Twitter to promote his stuff and politically be involved, but the real reason is to program his AI.
So here's something that's even creepier. So Mark Zuckerberg says that this is going to happen in the future.
It's here.
Well, here's the WEF.
This is one
telling you that it's already here. So this is about a maybe a 3-minute video, and watch what they have to say. This is kind of mind blowing.
Sensing your joy, your playlist shifts to your favorite song, sending chills up your spine as the music begins to play. You glance at the program running in the background on your computer screen and notice a now familiar sight that appears whenever you're overloaded with pleasure. Your theta brainwave activity decreasing in the temporal regions of your brain. You mentally move the cursor to the left and scroll through your brain data over the past few hours. You can see your stress levels rising as the deadline to finish your memo approached, causing a peak in your beta brainwave activity right before an alert popped up, telling you to take a brain break. Your mind starts to wander to the new colleague on your team, whom you know you shouldn't be daydreaming about, given the policy against intra-office romance. But you can't help fantasizing just a little. But then you start to worry that your boss will notice your amorous feelings when she checks your brain activity and shift your attention back to the present. You breathe a sigh of relief when the email she sends you later that day congratulates you on your brain metrics from the past quarter, which have earned you another performance bonus. When you arrive at work the next day, a somber cloud has fallen over the office. Along with emails, text messages, and GPS location data, the government has subpoenaed employees' brainwave data from the past year. They have compelling evidence that one of your coworkers has committed massive wire fraud. Now, they're looking for his co-conspirators. You discover they are looking for synchronized brain activity between your coworker and the people he has been working with. While you know you're innocent of any crime, you've been secretly working with him on a new startup venture. Shaking, you remove your earbuds.
What do you think? Is it a future you're ready for? You may be surprised to learn that it's a future that has already arrived.
Yeah. When I saw this, it was 6 months old. Like at the end of Watchmen. We did our plan a half hour ago.
Yeah. So it's here, Alex. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of this, right? That this video exists and that
Jimmy, I'm aware that they want to turn all the workspaces into giant re-education camps. And this is MK Ultra being externalized to the public. I had not seen this clip showing how much evil stuff the WEF puts out, how they just normalize you're going to eat bugs, you're going to drink sewage water, which LA's now doing. You're going to live in a 250 square foot 5G oven apartment, coffin apartment. I know you think Alex Jones would have seen this. I had not seen this. I'm like literally yelling at my producer. You know, I turned my mic off saying, get this, get this, get this. And that shows why you're important. We're all important because this assault is so huge. And notice what she said. In Star Trek, when the Borg cube arrives, they say, resistance is futile, you will be assimilated. And it's always a woman they hire. They admit in their documents, so it's less threatening. A pretty woman.
Siri voice.
Hey, yeah, don't be scared. It's already here. Don't be scared. So, sorry, Jimmy. You guys are so good, though. That is why I'm so excited to be on here.
Alex, so when I first saw that, it freaked me out because it had about 600 views. That's it. I had about 600 views.
Yeah.
And I watched it 3 times because I couldn't understand if she was for or against this. I noticed the guy in the back giggling like while she's saying that. But if you look her up, It's called brain transparency. I still can't tell if she's for or against it.
No,
It
she's
seems
for
to
it.
be.
She's for it.
She goes, well, it's here, so we have to have this discussion. It's a discussion
what I
we're
know.
going to have to have. We're going to have that. It's here already.
But she certainly doesn't look upset by it or scared about it. She's all
well, it's
giggles.
here, Jimmy.
It's here.
But you asked me, have I seen the clip? No, but I do know about the company and I do know about her. So let me tell you the rest of the story. I'm sure you've seen this clip. 6 years ago on national French TV, he also speaks French, like any good supervillain, and German. Klaus Schwab is on national TV and he says, first, in French, the chips will all be in your clothing to buy and sell. Then they will be in your hand. Then they will be in your brain. And he said this in a bunch of different, some compositing, like 5-6 interviews he's done. And he says, soon to be part of society, you will all have brain chips and we will all think and we will all know what we are all thinking. But of course, that'll all be hacked and controlled and garbage. Imagine the schizophrenic, horrible world where people know what you're thinking or the thing's programmed because your brain's always thinking every subconscious and unconscious is thinking of every scenario, every view. You may be having your baby, wash him in the bathtub. You love him, you protect him, but your mind's thinking, what if I drop him, they'll drown? That could be interpreted, you thought about drowning your baby. So the truth is the brain's looking at every aspect all the time at the subconscious and unconscious level. And so this thing is all fraud. It's all quackery. It's all AI's real power is convincing you that it's better than you, so you hand your authority. Vivek Ramaswamy said something 2 weeks ago that was so smart that I've said in other ways that I haven't heard anybody else point out. He talked about tennis when AI first came out 2 decades ago. They first put AI in to see if a ball was out. And they found it was way worse than humans calling it. But everybody stopped arguing because they thought, oh, it's a machine, it's better than us. We have to stop handing our authority over to this and just deciding, well, a master computer, Klaus Schwab says this too, under a technocracy, will allot what I get and tell me what job I have. They have cartoons shown in British UK schools a decade ago. It's called Plandopolis, that shows the future. And it says, we track your brain waves. There's like 5 parts to it. You eat bugs. You're told what you'll be. No one's allowed to have a car. You only get meat once a year. You're only allowed to travel once a year, but it's wonderful and it's good. You watch it as an adult that grew up in some semblance of freedom, and you think this is dystopic garbage, but this is being shown to 7th and 8th grade students in the UK called Plandopolis. It's on YouTube, and you watch it, you think it's a joke. But for an unconscious person who just knows you get a bonus, that's the message. You get a bonus when your boss reads your brainwaves. And of course, you don't get to read your boss's brainwaves. So they're also creating a class system.
Yes.
So tell me what you think of this article. It says Obama-Biden administration legalized neurological surveillance after Trump's election. So in 2016, the U.S. federal government enacted another law to legalize the National Neurological Condition Surveillance System. Now, neurological, that I think of brain when I hear them use that term.
So for health, right?
So the National Brain Condition Surveillance System is how I read that sentence.
Yeah.
So the
National Mind Control System.
Yeah. Neurological conditions includes those of the human brain. The 2016 law is partially provided as follows. It's called the Surveillance of Neurological Diseases. It says, in general, the Secretary of the Human Health Services, acting through the Director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and in coordination with other agencies as the Secretary determines, shall, as appropriate, enhance and expand infrastructure and activities to track the epidemiology of neurological diseases and incorporate information obtained through such activities into an integrated surveillance system, which may consist of or include a registry to be known as the National Brain Condition Surveillance System.
Wow.
The National and there it is.
There's the Trojan horse. Your brain health.
What did I just say? What did I just say 15 minutes ago before you brought this up? For new viewers, I swear this sounds insane. It's not. It's called the Intergalactic Communications Network or System. That's what they said in 60. They said, we don't have the computers yet, 1960, but they said, we're going to have all these computers that surveil you, and then if somebody's heart rate goes up, we'll know and we'll send police to their house. That's one of the things they put in the paper. So yeah, this is This is not the Internet of Things. This is the Internet of mind control, and that's what they're all rolling out right now. So they're all given a script, and they're told, whether it's Zuckerberg or her or Klaus Schwab or Bill Gates, they're all in this big combine. They're all in this mind control scientific mad scientist cult, and they're all told, okay, now it's time to roll out the next phase, and this is going on right now. They have the UN treaty, the latest draft, takes control of our national medical responses to any new disease, allows them to arrest or round up or take anybody they want away. Anybody that gets in the way of the lockdown and public safety can also be disappeared. And the UN sets the policy. Who created the UN? The military-industrial complex at the end of World War II to establish the world government.
So let me, do you have more time to talk or do you have to go?
I could stay here 2 hours if you want.
Okay. Let's take a break. We're having a little bit of an audio problem. Let me recall you on Zoom. Do you want to do that or no?
We think it's on his end right now because it kind of clips every so often.
Okay, so let's take a 2-minute break and we'll come right back.
Hey guys.
So we're back. We're with the one and only Alex Jones, and I wanted to show this clip from Tucker Carlson. It's a very short clip, and I wanted to get your reaction to it.
If you live in a society where the people in charge just want to sell you out to get rich, that's bad. But that's not what we're watching. We're watching something much darker than that. So the objective of, I would say, the entire administration and its enablers in the Republican Party, which is most elected officials there, is to destroy the United States, the recognizable United States, the country you grew up in, the country you've been living in, say, 10 years ago. And that's kind of obvious to everyone. But too few people pause and ask, well, what is that? Like, these people live here. They don't all have secret island getaways, especially now that Epstein is gone. And so if they succeed in their project of destroying the United States, where are they going to go? It's a little bit like burning your own house down. So why would you do that? That's not just an act of destruction, it's an act of self-destruction. So is that a political program? No. A political program is designed to help the people who institute it and their voters and donors. Their program helps nobody.
So I've been kind of developing my own theory on this, Alex, so if you remember a couple of weeks ago, Xi Jinping visited San Francisco. And if you've ever been to San Francisco, there's homeless people everywhere. Well, they cleaned that up for Xi Jinping to come there. And so a couple of years ago, Gavin Newsom announced that there was a $40 billion surplus. You could put Alex up. There was a $40 billion surplus in California. And I was like, well, I bet he's going to clean up homelessness and he's going to give people health care. And they did nothing. They did nothing with that $40 billion. And now they're saying it's all gone. And I don't know. And no one knows where it went. And so we know that they could end homelessness in America for a fraction of the money that they sent to Ukraine at the blink of an eye.
And restart it and end it again.
That's right. They could have fixed it 4 or 5 times over, and they could have sent everybody to college for free. They won't do any of that. So I'm developing this theory that they're wanting us to be on edge, and they want us, just like Tucker had talked about it when he was on our show, they want you to, when you go to the 7-Eleven, you have to step over a homeless person and everything's locked up behind cages, and you're going to get a crazy person screaming at you so that you will welcome authoritarianism, right? Just like with the terrorist attack on 9/11 did, we became a surveillance state. People gave up their freedoms. By the way, the Patriot Act was on a shelf for years. They were waiting to implement that. And so people just forgot that every email, every text, every phone call they make is being recorded and categorized and collected by the government. And so I'm starting to develop this theory, they keep saying that Trump and Trumpers are going to start a civil war. The people starting a civil war are the corporate media, which are beholden to a handful of billionaires, which are beholden to no country. And it's like they want us fighting. They want us at each other's throats. They want homelessness here. That's why they won't fix it. They want everybody to be on edge and afraid. And that's what and they're wrecking the country. That's why the border's open for many reasons. But we'll talk about that in a second. But just go ahead and respond to what I said and what Tucker said.
Well, that's a profound clip by Tucker. I've heard him say similar things, but I hadn't seen that clip. And I really am an expert on this because I read the writings voluminously of kind of the high priest of these people that you all know are Hararis and folks. And so a lot goes into this. But at one level, you're 100% right, and there's some other levels to it, in my view. Klaus Schwab has said, we want an angrier world. So they want you to see dystopia and pain. It was declassified that since the 60s, the CIA wanted ugly art, ugly architecture, ugly culture, so that you would accept an uglier world and just get used to it and wouldn't demand beauty and wouldn't go along with people that wanted a better world because they were about to end the experiment of America with all its problems and all the issues. It was the wild, wild west, and people could come here. It was the best house in a bad neighborhood, and they could really aspire to be a maverick and to innovate. Every other place had shut down innovation because elites didn't want anything to challenge their monopoly of hegemonic control. That's why feudalism looks the same everywhere. You keep people on tiny pieces of land. In every culture, in Japan, ancient Europe, you name it, the nobles were a foot or two higher than the serfs because they'd been kept at starvation levels for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's a management system to keep people dumb and poor. You know, like the famous comedian George Carlin said, they want you dumb, they want you stupid, and just passive enough to do the work until you retire, and then they can steal your pension. And so now, with robots and all the rest of this stuff, they don't even need people. Life was always cheap. Now it's seen as we're eating up their resources. So they don't want the world to aspire to a two-car garage and a vacation and healthcare and a small swimming pool in the backyard and access to medical care. With all this technology and all this science, we should be working, they have all the actuaries 2-3 days a week, living like kings. But instead, they set up legal systems and corporate systems and tax systems that tax the middle class and the poor, give people benefits only for the social controls that come out of it, so they can manage us as serfs. But then it gets worse. If you talk to, when I've covered Bilderberg myself more than 10 times, my crew many other times, we get into the hotel a few days before they close it, and I hand out a card and I say, when the Bilderberg
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletter. Just visit